Hello, my name is Jacqueline Gabriel, and today I will be speaking on behalf of Sage Legal Group. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, thank you for contacting our firm about a wampum belt design for the Women of Six Nations. Our firm has drafted a briefing note for your review. I thank you on behalf of Sage Legal Group for your time in meeting with me to discuss the details of our wampum belt design. I would like to begin with a land acknowledgement. I recognize that colonization and associated attitudes, policies, and institutions have harmed and continue to harm Indigenous peoples' relationship with this land. I would like to respectfully acknowledge that the land on which we gather today is the traditional territory of the Three Fires Confederacy of First Nations, comprised of the Ojibwe, the Ottawa, and the Potawatomi peoples. I am grateful to work, learn, and live in this land in which I am unwelcome. To begin, we will start with a background. In 1763, King George III issued a royal proclamation as a foundational document established between the relationships of the First Nation peoples and the Crown. And the treaty remains vital as the proclamation outlines how negotiating treaties would take place. However, over time, Canada has not met the provisions set out in the proclamation. A tool to facilitate reconciliation with an Indigenous nation is a wampum belt. The wampum belt is used to signify a relationship between two groups. In the lead up to the potential renewal of the Royal Proclamation, our firm proposes a wampum belt design to signify an agreement with Six Nation Indigenous women. The belt comprises of elements concerning reconciliation and healing. In order to enhance reconciliation, an important approach to consider involves crafting a new proclamation through legislative means. Collaboration between you as the Prime Minister and the Indigenous Governor General, the Right Honourable Mary Simon, can modernize and update the proclamation. This process could commence nationwide consultations to facilitate the drafting of a new proclamation. For this new proclamation, of course, there are essential terms. Within the modernized proclamation, you as the Prime Minister can build on the findings of the National Inquiry into Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and Girls, and to include key provisions on self-determination, self-governance, and facilitate Indigenous legal orders by beginning the consultation process with a wampum belt. You as the Prime Minister can attempt to express the Six Nations people that the government is committed to reconciliation. Here you'll take a close look at the wampum belt design that we are proposing for the Women of Six Nations. As demonstrated, this is the proposed wampum belt, and this proposed belt was carefully and thoughtfully curated by Sage Legal Group's best efforts. You may note certain symbols, colors, and textures of this wampum belt, which will be described throughout this presentation. We'll begin with explaining why we have chosen the turtle as the main focus of this wampum belt design. And the turtle is supposed to symbolize Mother Earth. And we've chosen this representation of Mother Earth because we believe it is important to our message, as Mother Earth is known for her ability to nurture and protect the nations. Next, you will note the two lines which sit at the background of the wampum belt, and these two lines are meant to represent two boats, and it is reminiscent of the two-row wampum. And the significance of the two boats is to represent the nation's way of life and the practice of the government existing simultaneously and in harmony. Further, you'll note the compass. We have 4 compasses throughout the wampum belt, and the compasses are towards the end of the belt, and they represent guidance and strength in wisdom. Specifically, the symbolism extends to the 4 compasses in order to strategically embody the profound concepts of guidance and strength. And they're not only just a visual element, but they're also the essence of direction and resilience, emphasizing the enduring principles that guide the nations. So with guidance, we can come together in forming a healthy and mutually respectful relationship. And of course, together, all of the elements contribute to a holistic representation of the wampum belt, reinforcing the importance of guidance and strength in navigating the journey towards reconciliation and towards unity. And for a colorful component of the wampum belt design, we have included the use of colorful beads, all representing their own respective symbolism and meaning and purpose within our wampum belt design. We have chosen the colors purple, black, blue, red, and yellow. So along both ends of the wampum belt design, there are beads in these respective colors. We have chosen purple because it represents honor. We have chosen blue because it represents the sky and it represents female representation. The color black is used for the representation as a strong symbol of the night sky and the wisdom that ancestors hold. As for red, we have chosen this color because it represents blood and the strong bond between family members and communities within nations. It also symbolizes the land and the indigenous bond of the bond that indigenous people have with their nations and with the environment. As for the color yellow, we have chosen this color because it symbolizes the sun and the warmth that Mother Earth provides. It also signifies energy, and it signifies growth and renewal. And as you can see, all of these colors have been carefully and thoughtfully chosen in order to integrate and in order to emphasize an overall message that showcases the knowledge, the wisdom, the history, and strength of the Indigenous nation and their connection with the land. This design in particular, and our main focus with this wampum belt, is to place womanhood at the forefront of our message. And this design in particular places womanhood at the forefront of the traditional teachings and leadership roles. Wampum belts are generally representative of womanhood because women would typically walk far distances to retrieve certain materials when creating these belts. And we would like to make note of that with our wampum belt design. And so that is reminiscent of that. Now, the significance of the proposed wampum belt is threefold. With the belief in holistic reconciliation, with the federal government's acknowledgement of Indigenous women, and with the injustices faced. At Sage Legal Group, we believe in reconciliation, and we believe that reconciliation goes beyond merely leaving the past behind and moving on to the future. Instead, reconciliation entails acknowledging past wrongdoings against the Indigenous nation and actively striving to prevent them from recurring and continuing. And the proposed new Wampum Belt design represents the federal government's aspiration to pay homage to Indigenous women, to empower them, and to empower them to reclaim their identity. Indigenous women have faced many injustices throughout the history, with the most recent manifestations of increased rate of homicides resulting from violence against Indigenous women and other violences, such as issues of insecure housing, homelessness, and lack of proper education. Now, there are certain legal issues to consider with the proposition of the Wampum Belt. And our mission with the Wampum Belt cannot be accomplished unless we predict the legal issues that may arise and unless we strive to assess, analyze, and solve these issues ahead of time to take preventative measures. We have assessed two primary issues, and we've also assessed how we plan to address these issues in order to avoid mistrust. The two primary issues we have assessed are as follows. 1, the role of settlers in crafting the Wampum Belt. And 2, does the current lack of Indigenous presence hinder the ability to authentically address inclusivity and representation? With the first issue, the choice of non-Indigenous firm for this proposal is rooted in the concept of white saviorism, wherein the government aims for a deceptive form of reconciliation without challenging colonial power. This approach, which is labeled as false generosity, avoids addressing oppressive structures and maintains white supremacy. The selection of our firm with a neoliberal strategy to address violent actions without threatening the existing power dynamics. The belief in Indigenous lack of agency perpetuates the misconception that Indigenous law is deficient, disregarding its rich relevance. This absence of Indigenous consultation contradicts the genuine goals of crafting a wampum belt and serves the state's self-interests throughout a guise of false generosity. We acknowledge this, and we are working towards incorporating many different aspects and many different advice and pieces of information and knowledge to incorporate from Indigenous nations and from Indigenous women as to the proponents of our wampum belt. The second issue revolves around the potential demeaning impact of having non-Indigenous women create the wampum belt design and discuss women empowerment. Six Nations women have historically led in liberation efforts against colonialism, as depicted in 6 Miles Deep. Focusing solely on Indigenous women neglects reconciliation with other segments, like Indigenous men and Two-Spirited individuals. Our firm contends that not involving Indigenous women in this leading project perpetuates white saviorism and Western feminism, contributing to the continued oppression of Indigenous nations. This approach dismisses the historical significance and leadership of women and of the Haudenosaunee women. To conclude, while a wampum belt holds potential for reconciliation with the Six Nations, our firm, as settlers, acknowledges limitations and highlights identified issues. For effective reconciliation, we propose a consultation led by Six Nations women and government representatives, ensuring Indigenous voices and consent. Working collaboratively can produce a culturally appropriate and genuinely reconciliatory wampum belt. Additionally, we recommend updating the Royal Proclamation of 1763 through Six Nations-led consultations, addressing past and present oppressive structures. To demonstrate a genuine commitment to Indigenous sovereignty, reconciliation, and self-determination, the government must engage in true generosity efforts through solidarity. Thank you, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, for your time and for trusting our firm with the honor to accomplish this task. Thank you.